You know, for a long time, I thought to myself that y'all are just trolling me, just trying to give me heart issues and stuff every day. And today it was proven by a single comment. This person decided to make the distinction on my video about things being overpriced and stuff and how it's really inflation and stuff. This person wanted to make the distinction that Harley Davidsons are not made in America. They are just assembled there. That, my friends, is a stupid distinction because everything that's made in America has parts sourced from all over. Every single thing made in America is parts. This is not the point of this video. Just hear me out. And I was like, that is a stupid distinction because yeah, I'm sure parts for everything come from. My GMC right there was built in Detroit and sourced from all over the world, right? But then this guy responds, but Indians are made in America. Now I knew he was just going for it. He was just trying to give me palpitations. You're out of your mind. And anyway, he was just screwing me. Anyway, so the point of this video, I got an email the other day with somebody saying, hey, I have a question and I feel stupid for asking it. Well, there's your first problem, because I think that's a problem we have in the biker community is we make people feel stupid for asking questions. And I might even do it sometimes, and I shouldn't. I shouldn't do that stuff. We shouldn't gatekeep, blockade, backstop. What? No, those are people who get paid to snitch. Anyway, we shouldn't do that. We should allow people to ask questions. We should encourage, ask questions, learn it, you know. Anyway, this is a nice dude who I know, and he was like, you were talking about on the live how you got an open primary for the chopper coming, which not only do I have it coming, it's right there. What's a primary? He says, and I'm like, and I'm laughing now because I feel it's bad that somebody would be embarrassed to ask that question. But that's what he said. He's like, I don't know what a primary is or does. Would you explain a bit of an anatomical sort of video on what is a primary and what the hell does it do? First off, big giant asterisk. I am a moron who works on his own bikes in his garage. I have no formal training. Zero. I'm an idiot. Don't listen to me. If I say something wrong and you're a mechanic, be gentle. I'm trying my best, and just comment down below what I said that was wrong. But in short, I don't know how long this video will be. A primary is your connection between the engine and the transmission. And I wish I had a bike on the lift to really like point, you know, close up in my eyes, but I don't. We'll look at the ST here to sort of point out all the different stuff of what is a primary. That is the primary. This whole giant lump here. Inside, this is the inner primary, outer primary, derby cover. All right? So these are the main outside parts of your primary drive. Primary is actually short for primary drive. You've got the engine and the transmission, and the primary connects them. Every single Harley Davidson has a primary drive. Yes, even a Sportster. Somebody was about to comment, Sportsters don't have it. Yes, they do. It's just that the engine and transmission are a single machined housing or casting, and the primary drive is inside that one single big lump, but there is in fact still a primary drive. And what the primary does is you've got a main shaft coming out of the engine that when the engine is running, it is spinning all the time. When the engine is running, the main shaft is spinning. Give it gas, spins faster. That's all there is to it. The engine is a fairly not complex thing in your bike. When it's running, the main shaft is spinning, that's it. You give it gas, it spins faster and with more power. That's all there is to it. That has a giant sprocket. Actually, what it has first is a compensator. So when people talk about the compensator is, let me explain this. The compensator is something built onto the motor before the primary drive that has sort of these big three fingers, right? There's one on the sprocket side, and there's one on the motor side. And the idea is that can give it a little give, right? It's not so, the resistance from the primary and the transmission is not such a shock to the motor. So the compensator, I wouldn't call it a sacrificial part because they're not supposed to wear out, but they do. But a compensator is sort of smooths things out. The fact that those big three teeth are sitting on each other is supposed to be able to move a microscopic amount and just smooth it out. That's what a compensator is for. It's to compensate for the judder of an engine engaging and all that sort of stuff. That's what a compensator is. When your motor has a whole lot of horsepower, that thing wears out, and that's when you get rattles and noises because it's moving. The three pieces are moving more than you really want them to, and that's how you get that sound that actually kind of sounds like, if you used to work on hot rods, sounds like a spark knock. That's what a dying compensator sounds like. If you guys remember my douchebagger, the 110 Stage 5 Road Glide I bought a while ago, it had a bad compensator when I bought it, and when I rolled on the power, there was a spark knock sound, and I'm like, oh, compensator's dying. Like you can hear that immediately. So the compensator comes off the motor, and then there's a sprocket there. Just picture a big gear. And then there's a giant chain here. Not there, that's final drive. That's a belt on this, but there's a chain or belt back here, that's the final drive. We're talking about the primary drive. So there's a giant chain inside there right now, and that goes from that compensated sprocket off the motor to the clutch basket. The clutch basket is pretty complex. There's a lot going on there. But essentially that chain, because the motor's always spinning when it's running, is constantly spinning. That chain is always spinning, always moving. And when you give it gas, it spins faster. The clutch basket is really hard to explain the mechanics of it. Well, I don't know, or at least I'm not smart enough to. But when it's in gear and you pull the clutch in, it separates a stack of discs that's in that clutch basket. And that makes it spin freely from the transmission. When you let the clutch out, the discs come back together and they slowly start meshing in with one another, and that's how drive is actually pushed to the transmission. If it's in neutral, it does nothing because the transmission's... That's why you can let the clutch out with it in neutral, because the transmission's not in gear, so it'll spin. It's spinning the transmission, but nothing's happening. All right? So just trying to picture that there's some discs that clutch discs almost look like brake pad material, and when you let the clutch out, it meshes those discs together, and then it starts pushing the transmission. If it's in neutral, it does nothing. If it's in gear, it starts pushing it back. All right? Now, that's also where your starter is, and I'm actually going to use my new belt drive to show you how that all functions. This is the new inner primary for my... why is it sitting crooked? This is the new inner primary for my belt drive. So this is the same part as this in here, okay? This primary is a wet primary. It's full of oil. So when that chain's going around in there, it's slopping oil everywhere. It's keeping everything lubricated, all that sort of stuff. This is a belt-driven primary. It's dry and it's open. When I put this on the chopper, you're going to actually see this belt instead of where the big chain was. This all spinning. You're going to see it right out in the open. This is the clutch basket. All right, so let's go talk about the inner primary first. So clutch basket sitting on here spinning. The sprocket off the motor's on here spinning. Okay? This won't have a compensator because the belt does that job. It gives a little bit. All right, so you got the sprocket off the motor, and then our chain or belt coming back to the clutch basket. This is where your starter goes. All right, so your transmission's on the back side of this, right? On this side, there's a shaft coming through, and the clutch basket sits on here, and there's something, either a belt or a chain, connecting it to the motor. All right, starter comes through here. The big clutch basket has what's called a starter ring gear, which is right here. That is where the starter is going to engage on this belt drive. It's the same thing on a wet one. It's the same one on your stock Road Glide, your stock Sportster, your stock. There's still a starter ring gear on the back of the clutch basket, okay? Now, one of the problems I had with the chopper when I first got it, if you have a big horsepower motor, is you can kill these. When I first got the chopper, I kept eating, or actually it was already partially eaten when I got the bike. The starter ring gear had missing teeth because it had too many teeth. This is... I don't know how many teeth were on it, but it was like your basic stock late 90s starter ring gear. Has more teeth on the actual clutch basket, that starter ring gear, and more teeth on the shaft that comes out of the starter. We'll show you that in a minute too. And essentially, because the teeth are smaller, they're weaker, but also that'll make the motor spin up faster when the starter engages. Well, if those teeth aren't strong enough, they start shearing off, and you start losing teeth off the starter ring gear, and eventually you hear when you hit start, because there's nothing to grab hold of. The teeth are gone. So what you do is you go down in teeth. So shovel heads and other bikes had 66 teeth on the starter ring gear, and they were much bigger. What I just showed you is a 66 tooth. So that's a big, like, shovel head style starter ring gear. And then the starter has 9 teeth. That's old school stuff. But that gives you way more grab, purchase, and the starter's not trying to spin the motor as fast, but it's still enough to start it. That's why old shovel heads, when you start them, they don't spin up real quick and then fire. They spin slower, but they still ignite and get going. I had to go to a 66 tooth starter ring gear on the chopper when I first got it because the starter wasn't strong enough and it couldn't turn that stroker motor over. So I changed it to a 66 tooth. This from BDL, which I'll do a whole video on this, put this thing on. This thing is Cadillac nice. Not sponsored. I won. Actually, Tom won this in Daytona, but because Brown Sugar is Sportster based, he gave it to me for the Beautiful Loser. So this comes with a 66 tooth and a 9 tooth starter pinion. So it's already kind of beefed up. So let me show you that again. So that big giant here, we can set that on there. That's not gonna hurt nothing. So very softly, we don't want to scratch stuff. As you can see, no, you can't. This gear is always riding right there, and right in here is a shaft from your starter that has 9 teeth, at least in this arrangement. When you hit the button on your starter, that shaft shoots out via a solenoid, engages with these teeth here, and then starts to spin. Spins the whole primary, which spins the motor, and when you have fuel and spark, bam, that's when the motor starts. That's actually how the starter works. Shoots through this hole, engages here, spins everything up, and starts everything. All right? So this is that pinion I was talking about. So this is actually the part that goes through. I don't have to change this on mine because I already have a 9 tooth, but I'm going to anyways because they give you a new one. Shoots out, shoots into here, engages, spins the belt or chain, which spins the motor, fire up. So there you have it. I don't know if this is kind of fun for you. A lot of you out there who watch this channel know a lot about bikes and build bikes and modify bikes and know what a primary does. But I don't know if you've seen one taken apart or haven't taken one apart. I want your feedback, so I'm trying to say, was this fun? Was it interesting? What did I get wrong? I don't know what I could have gotten wrong because I've taken primaries on and off a lot. But let me know. So on your stock bike, you got a wet primary with a big old chain in there. Pretty soon we're changing the primary out to an open belt primary on the chopper. Does exactly the same thing, just cooler. It really is. Someone's gonna say, why would you go to a belt? Because it makes you cool. It makes you cool, and back in the day it was smoother because that chain is, creates vibration and stuff. And these bikes already vibrate a lot. So, a belt drive would take some of that vibration out, smooth things out. Also, a lot of dudes run these giant belts. This is a 3-inch belt. Giant belts on drag bikes. So when you're quickly engaging a transmission off of a big race motor, a giant 5, 6, whatever inch belt will take that power and transfer it better because those belts are strong. Like, you're not snapping that belt. As a matter of fact, this 3-inch belt could handle, the Loser's probably 100, 110 horsepower. It's a 98-inch S&S Super Stroker. If it could do this primer could handle way more power than that. So as a matter of fact, it's probably overkill. I probably could have done a 2-inch, but this is the Evo 9S belt drive, and it's classic. They've made it forever, and it's just really cool. So thanks to Tom again. That was awesome. He was like, I can't use it, and I want it, so take it. Anyway, I want feedback. Was this good? Did this suck? Let me know. Love you all to death. Talk to you later. Bye.